If the altar's where you need us, take me there.
All right, so we're getting ready to enter into our session 2 with Pastors Armon and LaTaska Nelson. So let's stand up and let's sing a worship song that we all know. At the cross, where I saw the light and the burdens of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received, and now I am happy. Oh, at the cross, at the cross, at the cross, where I first, and the burdens of my heart rolled. It was there I received my son, and now I am happy. Oh, amen. Come on, let's give God a hand clap of praise and glory. Amen. You may be seated, and I'll now put it back into the hands of Pastors Armon and LaTaska.
Amen. Amen. Hey, can you just lift your arms up? All right. Put them back in your lap. Lift them back up again. Put them back in your lap. One more time. Lift them up. All right. All right. So that was a little exercise because we have had
just feasted.
Great meal, but also it's the posture of surrendering. It's the posture of surrendering. You say, well, Pastor, what are you talking about today? Talking about surrendering. So as we're going to move into this portion of the structure and how we are structured and whatnot, I just wanted to pause for a moment and say, well, what does that mean to be in a posture of surrendering? When we talk about structure, surrendering. And so Pastor LaTaska and I, we're just going to go through this real quick. But I don't know if many of you, anybody familiar with the single board model?
So y'all are on the single board model, the unified board, the one board model, huh? Warren is? Okay. Huh? Simplified accountability structure. They're all pretty much the same thing, because here we have a lot of people or the same people doing the same work. And so I don't know, probably not y'all, but we had people name on the list just rotating. They were just rotating the list. You know, you have the nominations committee, right? Or the nomination structure that the pastor is over. And we were just moving names, going down, coming up. Oh, let me tell y'all what that remind me of. When I was a young girl, my parents were pastoring in the church. So I'll direct the choir. Then I'll pick up the offering thing. Then I'll go stand on the door. Yeah, I was doing everything. And so that's kind of what it is. People start rotating into positions. So then you start moving into the simplified or single board model of that model, unified. That's what we call it in DC, but that's the model or the structure we use.
And one of the things that we had to move into that particular model is because one of the things that we found out that under the old model, because of the amount of people that you had in churches now, we were in violation. Case in point, one of the things it says that two persons from the same household can't be in finance. And so then one of the other parts of that says that it needs to be at least three people in that room counting. And so that it keeps a balance. I'm just telling you all these little rules and regulations. And it says that if you're over SPRC, then you couldn't supervise yourself. So you can't be a candidate of ministry. So all those little things. And so we went with the simplified model. And so as we're looking today.
And then it was easier for us to get stuff done
Right.
on this model, because you have a lot of people that wasn't engaged in the church, but they were in position. So when it came to vote, everybody showed up. We ain't coming to worship, but we'll show up to vote. And so it was just easier for us to move into a simplified model.
I'm laughing because we had one of our churches. We have smaller congregations now. A lot of people have passed on since the pandemic, and so many of our churches have dwindled down. Then some people been on Zoom, but we had about one church. We had about 20 people in the whole congregation, and all 20 people was on the board. And every time we tried to get anything done, we couldn't get anything done because we had 20 people trying to make a simple decision. And so we said, look, we're going to eliminate this, and we're going to go down to just a few people so it can get things passed and we could just keep moving forward. And so that's kind of one of the ways that the simplified model board allows us to concentrate more in doing ministry together than just being a structured organization.
So the FCC is the four church collaborative organization structure. As what we do is each church function on the unified board. It has its own organizational chart. But then amongst the four churches, there is another board of collaboration of people working together that comes from each church. So if Community and Warren each have their own unified, there is a small group of people that deals with the things that you all do together. And so that's how we are able to structure it. And Four Church Collaborative came organically out of us just being together, coming together, and working. And the way it works is Pastor Armon is the lead administrator pastor for Mount Vernon and Petworth. And however, he served as my support pastor at Community and Douglas Memorial. And it's vice versa. I'm the lead pastor of Douglas and Community, and he serves as the support pastor. So we support one another, but we also have a team that supports us while we're supporting one another. This helps us to collaborate administratively. So this time, after we've been doing this for about 5 years now, this time in our church conference, we were able to do the forms and the paperwork all together. The conference this year did our church conference all together. So it went smoothly because we had to have a pre-church conference before that conference came, because we want to make sure we ain't having no problems. Gotta make sure that y'all don't uppercut us in no kind of way. But it was great. We all came together. Everybody saw everything, and we just moved forward.
Yeah, matter of fact, they asked for the different reports and forms and whatnot. And so, again, just remember that there is no secrets. There's no secrets. And what we mean by secrets, for most of you that knows that you can go online, the conference, and you can see the pastor's reports, you can see the pastor's salary, all those kinds of things that we cause us to have to vote on. So oftentimes people think that there's a lot of Don, I want you to see what we're doing and all of this other kind of stuff. And so the unified board and the collaboration piece allows us to work together. We all know what each other is doing. But let me just say this, because it's important for you all to know that even though we worship and everything together with certain kinds of things, we do have separate worship spaces, and we do separate worship times along with the collaboration. So it's important to understand. And that whole piece about the administrator role and I'm getting that, the administrator role and the support role, it just simply means that at those churches, I take on the lead role as administrator. And at her churches, she take on the lead role as administrators. But we have a team of people that helps us carry out the work. And so again, I want to just keep saying this, because as we're talking, let me just say this again. Collaboration is not easy, but it can be done. And the reason why that it's not easy, because we have to be cognizant when we're trying to collaborate, to understand. Remember when you were a youngster, the teacher says if you want to say something, you raise your hand, because it's important that you have your time to say what you want to say, and then the other person have their time. And that's what collaboration is all about, because sometimes when you're trying to collaborate, some people will bully the whole thing and make you feel like that your voice is not important. And what I mean by that is that we have churches like that. One church may not, and I heard you all say that, I just wanted to pause for a moment, because one church you may not get a lot of time with the pastor, and in the other church you may get a lot of time with the pastor. So it's important that no matter how much time you get, that you are in collaboration with one another.
I'm glad you asked. So one of the things is just to be very transparent. Some churches are they would rather have a male pastor, right? Male pastor. Another church would rather have a female pastor because of tradition and backgrounds that we bring. So he and I sometimes have to play good cop, bad cop, or good pastor, bad pastor, because I'll be like, hey, they'll listen to you. Tell them I said. Or, not tell them I said, or he'll say, hey, they'll take it better from you, because how many the reality of it in this time, just say, for instance, there's a group of women working together, right? And he comes in and he wants to do this, right? But it'll look like in this day and time, if we're not careful, that he's bullying them to tell them what he wants, or he just dominant. So it varies. So you have to figure it out how it is, because we'll say, hey, I just know they'll receive it better from you. So I don't need to say, I know I'm the pastor. I don't need to say, well, I'm the pastor. Yeah, this is what I want to do, right? So in supporting, we kind of have a conversation, understanding that, hey, it just looks better coming from you. That's one route. The other route is certain things that I can't do. Like, for instance, y'all saw Pastor Martin running around here doing all this stuff and picking up stuff and doing it. Pastor Armon to do it too. I'm sitting somewhere doing this. Right? So not understanding your role, what is comfortable, your strength, my strength, his strength. And then in worship, we support one another. He kind of pulls back if we're at my church. I pull back kind of if we're at his church. Now, sometimes he says I bully, but I'm not a bully.
So as we're talking about that, but one of the things is understanding one another.
Mm-hmm.
The most important thing is understanding. Now, granted, I want to make sure I'm clear about this because I don't believe that the church is our children. But let me just say, we have children. And oftentimes, my children, our children, they like the easy answer.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can come to mama at any time because that's the easy answer. And so they know that they're going to get the answer, probably get the same results, but not as easy from me. And so we see that a whole lot, even with the four church. It doesn't matter if I'm responsible administratively for this particular church. A lot of time they'll go ask Pastor LaTaska before they even come to me. And so that's just typically, but the trust is among both of us. And so we try to work things out, iron it out. We don't already talked about it before the people come. And so that's what good collaboration is communicating and knowing what you're called to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you are an usher and you're greeting the people as they're coming in, but you know that you always have this frown on your face, and you tell people to go over there and sit over there where I told you, then maybe that may not be your area of your call of ministry. Because how many of you know that when a person comes to your church, the first contact that they make is going to determine whether they walk back out the door or not. So it's important for us to understand where our roles and responsibilities and what the calling is that we are doing. And so we get that and we understand that really well as relates to us.
So you're saying if you're not the first person and you're frowning, you may just have to walk them to the seat that the person that smile. That's a supportive role and getting it done.
So the structure, as Pastor LaTaska said, we have what we call special assistants to the pastor.
Mm-hmm.
We, as a regular church, we have our own church not admin, but church administrators and whatnot. But then we have special assistants to the pastor, and we're going to show you what that entails. So we have a special assistant of worship.
Mm-hmm. Special assistant of information, and we do assistant and assistants multiple, because we may have two, but we try to get someone from each church to come together as part of the team. So where you might have a special assistant to the pastor, it might be one person from my two churches and one person from his two churches or something, but they're able to communicate with all four churches, those two. And so we have a special assistant of worship, information. That means all the information that needs to go out collaboratively to the four churches. CFO, the finance office. Carriers of the word, COTW, that will explain that more. Carriers of the word, those are our ministers. And then EYE, everything youth expression. That means the four churches, anything that we do among the youth, that group will handle. And the other people will support it. Community engagement. What does it look like for us to have community engagement separately? And what does it look like for us to come together and do it? Trustees, as I told you all earlier today, that the trustees sometime may be from one church and we're at another church. So they have created a bond to work together, to use that iron sharpens iron, right? Where some of the younger trustees can move a lot. The older trustees have a lot of wisdom. And so they just work together wherever their strengths are and how they support each other. And then the special assistant to SPRC, is that it? That's it. And I think, and the lay leaders. So a lay leader from each church. And all of these kind of meet weekly on their own, monthly or something, to create some time together to plan and come out together and figure out what needs to be done, what's not. We have like even our assistant of information. We do uh, Wednesday, word on Wednesday, or uh, the information that goes out, like the e-blast. We're not like Pastor Martin yet. We don't have the app yet, but we got to get the app.
So one of the things, though, I want to pause for a moment because we talk about special assistants as at SPRC. So one of the things that our SPRCs do is to get together and try to determine, okay, how can we support the pastors in their self-care, different things of that nature? How are we going to support them in trying to give them a raise or whatever the issue is? They come together to support one another. If one may not have the information, the other will have the information. And so it's one of those, again, collaborative efforts that they share information, they share resources, and those different types of things.
And let me just say this, because self-care is important, especially for pastors. And some people don't think pastors need self-care or a day off or time off. But you have to understand that normally at 2 or 3 in the morning, sometimes we may get those calls, right? And we do on Wednesday, on Mondays, we do movie meal massage Monday. And we tell people, just don't call us on Monday. That's okay. And for a long time, the struggle was people would call me and say, I know it's your day off or your Sabbath, but if you'd work Monday through Friday, how would you feel if you're in the school system and your principal called you and said, I need you at Sunday morning, I need you in the classroom? So let's just make sure we understand it. SPRC kind of helps us. And I'm one that sometimes I don't do it because I like to work, but it's always good to have someone that says, hey, Pastor, you need to take a break.
Yeah, and one of the things is that she didn't make mention on, and that's why it's so important that we deal with boundaries. We deal with boundaries. Now, again, she likes to work, and she likes to work a whole lot. Sometimes I get in her car, I'll tell her, look at here, just pull over, and I'll get right back out. Because we'll get in the car, and she will call somebody, and I got to sit there and listen
to the whole business
meeting, and I can't talk. And so I'm like, oh, wow, you supposed to be spending some time with me. But anyway, so it's important. And so our SPRCs get together. They make sure that we have some time. And, and as you were talking, sometimes, you tell people it's your self-care day, and they'll still send you an email. Mm-hmm.
So setting boundaries is important with all of these, really. Yes, ma'am. Uh-huh. That is special assistant of information. That means making sure that all the information gets out to all 4 churches. CFO is finance office. That's lay leadership. Carriers, COTW, that's carriers of the word. And we're going to go through all of them briefly.
As we're talking, and as you may mention, why is it so important that the lay leaders collaborate? Why do you think it's so important that lay leaders collaborate? Anybody know what a lay leader is? Lay leader.
Okay.
So okay. So one of the things, let me just say this. One of the things that it's difficult to get churches to collaborate is when lay leaders don't collaborate.
Or laity come together.
Because lay leaders are responsible for laity. Because believe it or not, in the Wesleyan tradition, the churches were often ran by laity. And those clergy persons didn't come around to maybe once a month. They called them circuit riders. But for the most part, the services were led by laity. And so when we think about that, it's so important that laity is working together. If you're working together as laity, then it wouldn't be too difficult for the pastors to or the pastor to come and work together.
So basically, and your simplified model kind of deals with this. We have lay leaders because each church has a lay leader, right? But our carriers of the word, that consists of our certified lay ministers, certified lay leaders, lay servants, all of that. If you're going to carry the word, and they take on leadership or ownership of it, and they meet once a month. They help with pulpit supply. They help with who's going to be liturgists. They do a lot of that, which helps us. That's the support. So we support each other, but we have people supporting us, right? So the carriers of the word come together. Right now we have 14 members of laity and clergy that does it. It's like we have reverends in our church that may come from Baptist persuasion or another persuasion. So all of those people that may preach at one time or another, they come together. Yes. Not over the pastor, but yeah, they support with the pastor. You have a lay leader or a lay servant that helps make sure that everything. So those, and the terms may be different, but it's basically your clergy, your laity people that comes together. They meet once a month and talk about. And we have, as pastors, have already talked about the chair with the chair and co-chair. We've talked about some of the things that's needed.
Even your layperson that's elected to go to the annual conference, they get together and they collaborate so that that information is shared with the congregation of what the conference is talking about along with the pastor. So it's important that laity are working together along as with the clergy personnel. And one of the things is when we talk about the carriers of the word, someone always asks us the question, you all have 4 churches. How do you do it? Well, let me just tell you, we would not be able to do it if we didn't have these systems in place. And so our carriers of the word helps us with pulpit supply. They helps us with all types of other types of things that other ministers and the other ministers would do.
Yep. But they have their own study. They have a small Bible study. You can go on, but yeah, they have that they assist us with communion. They assist us with Bible study. Like we don't teach all the Bible studies. Some of them do. Reading, prayer. A lot of them know about deaths and issues, health issues that people have before the pastor. How many people don't call the pastor no more first? I don't know, y'all may do, but people don't call the pastor first. They call everyone else. And so by the time it get to a certain group of people, they would say, have you let the pastor know? No. And so those people assist us and help us. They may just send us a text and say, so-and-so is in the hospital. So-and-so need prayer. See how it all works together? It just all works together. Such and such needs you. And guess what? Because I've received that, I'll say, you know what? Let me go over here and call them. So it's all the support. We can't do it alone. Pastor Martin said it today. I'm not going to do this by myself. We're not going to do it alone. That's where we are as well.
And one of the interesting things is that in the carriers of the word, of these pool of preachers carrying the word, or anyone that carries the word, one of the interesting things about that, because we have chairs and co-chairs and whatnot, but I just want to share this case study with you. So I went to this one church that I first started, and every church normally has a certified lay minister. And when the pastor comes, that lay minister been there probably longer than the pastor for the most part. And believe it or not, I don't care what the pastor comes in, what kind of authority that the pastor have, that person is saying, you can't tell me nothing. I've been pastoring these folks. I'm the real pastor. They ain't gonna say that to you, but that, and so that's normal. But what we were able to do is we took a person that we had like that, and now that person is the carrier of the word chair or co-chair. And so my point is that after, and we didn't share this, but after a period of time, when people get to know you, they start trusting you. And relationship is so important. The kind of work that we're doing, and so now she gladly loves to keep coordinating the ministers in the pool, in the in the pulpit, supplying and whatnot, and even in the Bible studies and some other things that we do.
And there is no way we can do it, even with the two of us, without her.
Right.
So not only do she supports us, we support her, because some of the things they call her and ask, hey, Pastor, we don't, did you know they didn't know how to do that? So I'm going to incorporate what does the liturgical stuff mean? You know, some people just don't know. We were standing up sometimes, rather with knowing the culture of the church, all things come to, people in the community would come and say, what's that chant y'all doing? You know? So then they start training and just giving out little examples of what things mean. Because you can say you're a welcome church, you are a welcoming church, but if people come in and they don't know what you're doing, you're not so welcoming. They don't understand. So.
And it's so important to deal with those kinds of things. I know you all said, and we're cooking with gas, but I know this is not up here, but sometimes you have to take things out of your worship services that is not meaningful to everybody. And what I mean by that is that she talked about the songs sometime that we sing, but also we have one church that loves to, when it's offering time, they love to, and each church had different songs. We would come together. Each church had different songs for the offering, and so we had to come to a common goal. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But just changing up some things that we had to
being accommodating, listening to one another, seeing what it works. So here's the thing. This is our FCC Everything Youthful experience. So we had one leader from each church. So we have 4 leaders come together and plan our youth experience, not just the worship service. Then the young ambassadors, which are the young people, they would come together and say, hey, they would plan their worship. Now we utilize youth throughout the worship, because how many of you know the youth is not the church of tomorrow, they're the church of today. You have to understand that. You have to be engaging, sometimes I had to tell the mothers, leave the baby alone. Leave the baby alone. Yes, she has her jeans on. Leave the baby alone. But we understand. So all the experiences that they had that was relevant to them, they would create the worship service. They would create how they wanted. They would create the music. They would create the videos. They would do it. And we had some seasoned people from each church that kind of coordinate that with them.
Yeah, and so even now, every 4th Sunday, we're sharing this, but every 4th Sunday is our youth and young adult Sunday. And that means where the pastors do absolutely nothing. We listen and we just involve ourselves. We're there, and they put the services together, and that's their time to come forth.
And understanding that when you tell young people that they are encouraged to do, we didn't have to change it, And when we first started, they were doing exactly what we were doing, but only putting a child in that. And I had to say, now you do know, Your worship service does not have to look like the regular worship service. So then we had Muppet Babies, marching band, we had everything. And it was great because we allowed them to express themselves the way they wanted to. Yeah, sometime on the parking lot as he's moving, they ended up putting the gaming truck on the parking lot, and the kids were coming from the community to play on the gaming truck. So just various things. I wouldn't have never thought about no gaming truck, but the kids know. So you have to even ask them. So it's just not worship service, it's them expressing who they are. hmm And so they do things online as well. The ambassadors are the children and the teens to do what they do. They plan everything and they move. And sometimes the services are intergenerational. Some of the grandparents are in worship with the kids because the kids have invited the grandparents to come.
So before I move along, we're about done. But can anybody tell me what's going on here?
I like that. Linking together. hmm Linking together. Huh? Yeah.
FCC financial responsibility. All right. We're getting ready to come
So
to
watch
a close.
this. People don't like to really talk about a lot of money, but money in church is needed, right? And sometimes you can't do it alone. You might have to link up with others. So it was good to see the Medicare and the mission because, I heard the $1,700 quotes and which says, hey, somebody's asking for some money, right? And that's a foundation that helps. And so you might not be able to just deal with finances from tithe and offering to deal with your church anymore. You might have to have partnerships. You might have to find someone outside. You might have to find a Quest organization, a Medicare organization. You might have to, watch this, find the liquor store down the street. Sponsorship, liquor store, people. This is what happened. We had a young man, can I tell a story? We had a young man, and Pastor Martin knows him. He was the community drunk, but he was a community mayor of the community. He was the one that you don't care how drunk he is, he can get some things done and people respected him. To the point one day he'd come to church and he came, we were kind of new. Pastor Armon was getting ready to preach touchy issues. He came and he sat in the front row of the church. Now, he had asked the musician to do a song for him a few days before, while he was sober. So the musician says, I'm going to do this song. The song, never would have made it. And that man got up and he said, sing that. That's my mother. Boop, 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 boop. And the people looked. And I know they looked at him like, what you gonna do? And we sat in the church and Pastor Armon got up. And I know some people were like, yeah, they getting ready to get him. And he took the mic to the man. Mm-hmm. And the man started singing it louder. Next thing you know, he was crawling. Woo. root. Now we in a dignified church now. We sitting there. Pastor Armon gets up and he says, I need everyone, some of the men, to come and pray. Let us pray for this young man. And nobody moved. Nobody moved. And probably because they didn't know what to do, didn't know what was going on. He's a new pastor asking people to, just didn't move. So I go down there and he prays for him and I just lay my hand on him. We praying. He said, thank you, Pastor. Thank you, First Lady. Thank you. And all y'all some hypocrites. He said, and all y'all hypocrites. And he said, now let me go sleep this stuff off. And he walked out. But we kept loving him. We kept working. He did a little bit more work than we would do, than I would do. He did a lot of work. He put him in cares and programs to get him. And now he's a trustee of our church. We would have brought him here.
One of the things is, and I have to make sure that people have an understanding about this, because he had credit, there was a credit that he had. We had feeding programs, and oftentimes during the holidays, the feeding programs, our partners, they didn't have food because they take vacations. And how many of you know the church never takes a vacation? Because God never sleeps nor slumber. And so one of the things is that he allowed us, because he had credit with the liquor store people start coming over to the church and start eating. Now, they wouldn't eat no pork because they were Muslims, but they would come over, and because he had credit,
Or
he was
faithful.
able to get them to buy into our ministry. So they started giving us cold drinks. Now, they didn't give us no liquor, but they gave us cold drinks
And ice.
And a few times when our ministry closed, our partners closed, they wrote us some big checks to keep the ministry going. I want to say this real quick about this as we're getting ready to close. Now, granted that everybody frowned on this individual when we brought him to church because he was just drunk. He was drunk as a skunk. I'm just going to tell you. And the folk was sitting up there like looking at me like, Pastor, you were not going to say anything? You're not going to do anything about this? And so I didn't, because the Lord didn't allow me to. But what I want to say is you have to be careful, because one day the members asked Pastor Nelson to go on a visit trip with them. And we was on the boat, shrimp boat. And I was downstairs on the lower part. We were downstairs on the lower part. And we kept wondering why people are going upstairs and what are they doing upstairs. And all of a sudden, we just decided to take a peek. And everything that they were scrutinizing this person over, they had it upstairs. And then they started inviting us over to their house. And so we decided that, we have to allow people to be transparent, and we have to serve people where they are. And that's what God is all about. Not judging, but showing grace to one another. I know we got off a little bit, but when we talk about the responsibility of finances, I just want to say this because I think it needs to be said, that we encourage each church to give their tithes and their offerings to their church. We really ask them to do that because we believe that is the church's responsibility. That's their responsibility to their church. However, we had a problem because throughout the pandemic, two of our churches, some things started happening to the building, and so we were not able to be in those buildings. And so oftentimes, the other two churches would get the loose pan offerings and the other ones wouldn't. So to make things fair, we decided that anything that we took as a collection on the loose pan, we would open it up as a line item for the FCC.
And that means anything that we done together, that money would go into a pot to build and say, hey, if we're going to do one event together, those funding would support it. And so for the years, we've been doing it now for almost 2 years. Everybody do their tithe and offering, but all of those things. So for Zoom or whatever, or like your Zoom, your communication that needs to go to 4 churches, those funds deal with that, and we make sure it's nothing different than what we used to do. We used to take a tithe and offering, then we say we had a mission offering. So now that loose paying offering just goes to the things that we do together as the 4 church collaborative. You got some more? And so we have that, and we make sure that make sure that those funding comes. But the point that I was getting when I said maybe the liquor store is whatever your people outside that can support you, that is support that is needed. You need to develop relationships with those individuals that's within your community, with your school systems. We adopt schools. We make sure we adopt schools. And then people in that community or in the teachers, they write checks. We stopped some places giving away backpacks, and we fill the backpacks up with school supplies so that teachers, watch this, when teachers have the backpack, they can offer supplies when kids come to class without supplies. Why? Because if you give everybody the backpack at the beginning, now they've used up everything. So now we create backpacks for teachers. So now they have a supply and they don't have to spend their own money. So now they're not spending their own money, but they have supplies to give to the students. And so just being creative, coming together, thinking out ways, how can we have funding that can support, watch this, the mission of the church, the mission of the community, the things we need, partnering with people. So normally what we did was start having relationship. People knew conversation. Hey, they see your work, they see what you do, they support it. You know, the stories are very important. I met the person yesterday with the 6 kids. What they had the first child one, the second they had twins, and then the third time they had triplets. That's 1, 2, 3. You know, it's like, man. So me, what I kept doing, I kept talking. Wait a minute, how'd y'all do that? So you got 1, 2, and 3, and all of this, but the story share the story. People now are engaged. Now, hey, I want to support that family, or I want to support you to help support that family. Those kind of things work.
Yeah, and also one of the most powerful things about what it is that we're doing is that it's a model that Jesus did. Jesus was in partnership, but he wasn't in partnership with church folk. He was in partnership with folk that he knew that he can get things done. If you don't believe me, come here, Zacchaeus. You know, Zacchaeus was a man who had some influence, who had a lot of resources.
Some money.
And Jesus says, I'm coming over to your house. And so it's important that if we are going to do ministry, that we partner up with people to build relationships. And, you know, you all know the rest of that story, but Zacchaeus became a part of what it was that Jesus was doing.
And our Pastor Daniels, he talks about how there's a private sector, there's a government sector, and there's a community sector. And these things intertwine, and making sure that sometimes you have these conversations going on. If y'all some Dallas Cowboy fans, I guarantee you, if you go to some of those suites, some business deals and communications and some things are being made. And what we like to do is separate it. We like to separate it. That's church stuff. I'm gonna do my church stuff from 11 to 1, but I'm gonna do the game 1:30 to 3. But it's separate. But those relationship building, sharing what you do, the ministry that you do, people get engaged. If they love what you do, they will share. They will share their resources and their funding with you. Today, while we're here, they are there, and they had an opportunity today to serve about 1,200 people with goods and community. But it took a collaboration, communication, and joining together to do some things.
That's what we have. Any questions? Any comments? Concerns? Well, again, we do appreciate you all. I'm through. I guess this will conclude my portion.
And my portion too. We thank you so much.
Awesome. Come on, let's give God another hand clap. Woo! You know, with them telling some of those stories about that individual, I'm not gonna name his name, but he he's a good brother. Yeah, love him dearly. I wish he would have came. I would have invited him to come, just to. But I'm glad they hit on some of those topics, because that's what we experience at both of the churches. We have both of those populations that are experience our worship service, and how do we engage those individuals. And then they mentioned something else about with the liquor store and all that. I remember when all that took place. Yeah, and those partnerships are so important. And maybe both leaderships, y'all know that I always mention about not exhausting the church's funds, and always rely on, always count, let's have partners come to the table and everything. They didn't mention about the community table that we did, the block table.
Well, we still, these partnerships are still today. Any partnership that we had when he was there, how many years ago? Maybe about 89 years ago, we still have those partnerships. But one particular time, we got this bright idea. We wanted to connect the east side to the west side. We wanted to put a table for the bridge, over the bridge. And we couldn't, they didn't give us the bridge, but we did a block. And we took 6 feet tables and connected them a block long. And we had almost 500 people come to the table that day. The dope dealers, the people in the community, they were like, Pastor say, sit down and eat. They ate with us. They helped us clean up the area. And one thing about it is, no matter what they did, they respected us during that time. They came together, they ate with us. If Pastor Armon, if they were fighting, somebody would say, they may never step foot in your church, but they would say, hey, don't touch my pastor. Don't touch my pastor. And those are the things. Why? Because you don't just have partnerships on the inside, you have partnerships on the outside. So when people, even my people today, they be like, Pastor, you going in there by yourself? You know why? Because those in that alley, they're going to watch me. They're going to make sure. Why? Because I've made a relationship with them, and they're going to protect their pastor, even though they may not never step foot in our door.
Right. And I just want to make this declaration, because I'm going to make sure that you all hold me accountable to this. But Pastor, I have that video of that table where those people are just sitting at that table. And I just got to go through my phone and find that. But I'm going to give it to you so that you can share with the people. And let me just say this. I will admit that in my leadership during that time, I was willing to see God in their leadership, and they put it together. They did all of the work. Your pastor and Pastor LaTaska, they did all of that together, but that came from a little ideal. And let me just say that it's theological, because we set all of those people at the table and we sat there and we ate together, and we didn't look at each other strangely. Was no I's and no U's and all of that, but we were all together. And so it's so important that we sit at the table from time to time and just talk and fellowship with one another.
And those tables, that table was one expression. And now we have moved and partnered with Bread Coins that do flash tables, that come and set up tables in the community and partner with the coins. And Pastor Martin will be introducing that probably to you all next year. Okay, that sounds great. But it looks differently. But it doesn't matter how it look. We just doing, and we all at the table.
Yeah, and it's just so many stories of the many things that we got done, and that was effort with Mayor Muriel Browser and the city, the District of Columbia. So there's many examples of how partnerships will be able to. When everybody has just one goal, one mission in mind, it's amazing how many people will hook on and say, "Hey, I want to be a part of that." And so, as long as the churches are together, as long as the church has one mind, one mission, people want to be a part of that. I wish you can show your video that you showed us, by which I did today. That your video, wish you can show that, because that's powerful, on how all y'all were able to collaborate together. To that number that y'all made is good stuff, and so and so that's just what it. Yeah, mirror, you can mirror it. Okay. And so I want y'all to continue to ask questions, because oftentimes they're busy. These two are busy. Now y'all think I'm busy, Pastor LaTaska, like Pastor Neil Armon was saying, he's more, but she kind of like, I kind of, that's where I got most, but she's on the go all the time. That reminds you of somebody, yeah. But she's always on the go, and so ask some questions, or write some questions down, and we can have another session, virtually. But yeah, write your questions down, because I want y'all to be able to. Let's see. So, any questions? Um, don't be. Let's see. Do that. All righty. And we'll come here. Smartcast. Okay, you should be able to share it now. You should see Vizio, Warren Vizio. Let me see. But I want y'all to see this, because it's powerful. So how did y'all enjoy yourselves? Y'all have good information? I see. Yeah, we getting ready to go, but I want to make sure this is shown, because this is the type of work that both of these two do in DC, and the amount of lives that all four of their churches, and five, the parent church, Emory United Methodist, that they're partnered with and part of. They do. When I first seen that, I'm like, wow. And then I let them tell it, but yeah, they partner with a lot of different people. Let me see. Huh. Okay, that's all right. Okay, yeah, I'll show y'all. Yeah. But it is powerful. Okay. Oh, it's too big of a. Yes. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Great question. And so, um, as United Methodist churches, so if you've been a part of the North Texas Conference, and now that we've combined and unified with a lot of churches, I think I don't want to get ahead of myself, but a lot of churches are preparing to close. Come next June, we'll a lot of churches are closing. So the bishop has put our bishop for our conference, which is now the Unified Conference. Kind of how like a lot of businesses are merging together now and collaborating. Now I'm saying that these two churches are merging, but what we've learned today, collaborating, doing ministry together, that's what the conference wants to see churches doing. Otherwise, churches can't struggle to stay open with just a handful of people. Uh, it's exhausting the conference. It's exhausting the conference and having to send an elder or a minister there. And it's exhausting the resources of that local church and its finances and just a little bit of ministry that is there. And so I've seen it happen. And we had a few of our black churches close last year. Jubilee United Methodist. Who else closed? God's Kingdom United Methodist. And it's one more that closed down. But they make those decisions come January, and they say, hey, who's vital and who's not vital? What are they doing now? And so, like Pastor Nelson just said, when I write my report every year, I write a report. The laity writes a report, and SPRC writes a report, and they look at all of our reports to see, hey, what's the is ministry being done? First of all, is ministry being done? And what's the vitality? Finance does a report, so they look at finance, and they first of all they look and say, hey, what dollars are coming through there? If they don't hardly see any dollars coming in there, then they say, okay, well, let's look at mission and ministry that's being done. And they take all this stuff into account to say, hey, you know what? It's just not vital to have that church open. And then they start that conversation to beginning to close that church down. Or if a church is proactive, what I'm trying to be proactive and say, hey, even though these are two churches, they both have their own identities, but they're doing ministry together and they're working for the common good for both communities and for each other's community. So just what they're mentioning, how everybody helps out. And so that's being proactive like that. Even though we're small in numbers, but we're coming together to do collaborative, not merging together, but doing collaborative ministry. The conferences, they grant upon that. They're happy when it comes to that type of. And we're already in some stuff. We're already doing like unity worship, even though we only had one this year. Next year we want to start doing more of that. So we already currently do a lot of stuff together, like this right here. This is our second leadership retreat that we did this year, because we did one in January. So I do 2 leadership retreats a year, and then I do town halls for both churches, not together but separate. I do those 4 times a year. So we're getting ready to have one in December. I do it every quarter. Every quarter I do a town hall, and that's to ask questions like that you're doing, even though members don't hardly show up. And when stuff is being done, some members like, yeah. So that's shared. So that's going to be shared in. You have some great questions. So that's shared in our council meetings or our town hall meetings. I have these type of conversations. Say, hey, we're doing this, this, and this, and this. Get ready, get ready, get ready. So most of this stuff will come in our December's town hall meeting or at our church council meeting. Now we Warren, they do theirs. It's every other month. Warren does their council meetings every. Community does theirs every month, and we had to miss this month due to we had a funeral or we had a complication. Yeah, we had a lot going on. So, but this first November, November 2nd, they'll have their council meeting November 2nd. And so they community meets every month. And that's where they get a lot of their information. That's where the leadership meets. And I know you're new to the church and all that. And that's good. You're gonna learn. Trust me, they gonna put you to work. You see, I wish so the women of faith, they will put you to work. And then they'll find somewhere so you can be active and engaged and involved and all that. But great questions. That's the type of questions that we want to see and have, and the participation we have here. But make sure y'all write questions down. What time is it? I know 3:30. Okay. I know. 3:30. Okay. And so, but great questions. I hope, and this was helpful and informational for y'all for real. These are just some of the stuff that we're getting ready to do. She mentioned bread coins, and which we're getting ready to participate in next year. Just to give you just a little bit about that. And so instead of giving our unsheltered folks physical dollars, there's coins that we partner with restaurants and businesses that this coin has. It has no cash value, but it has a value to it, $2.50. And this restores their humanity. This restores their just being and all that good stuff. And so they can earn these coins, or they are given these coins. If they can go cash them in at a McDonald's or an IHOP, that's who they partner with. Pastor Nelson, Armon, you mind just mention just two little words about that? I know we got to go, but just how that bread coin, because we're getting ready to do that next year.
So the way it works, not only that in Washington D.C. it started there. Not only that we could take those coins to just the restaurant, but one of the things is some other little studies. One of the things that we have is the Children's Hospital. And so we put those coins in the Children's Hospital. So when children go to the hospital, their parents can go into the cafeteria and purchase a meal with those coins so that they wouldn't have to spend their own money. The other part of that is that in Washington, D.C., we partnered up with the police department. And so the police department gives out those coins to people that maybe can't get a meal and whatnot. So it's called community policing. And so then the last part that I want to share with you is we noticed that there was this local store where the school was, and the children would get out of school every day, and they would run in that store and they would steal something out of that store. And so we noticed that they kept on doing it and kept on doing it. And so what we did was we planted those coins, right? We planted those coins into the school. And so the school was able to give those coins out to the students. And so in return, those students could take that coin down to the store and purchase whatever it was that they purchased. Now, what bread coins does is bread coins have all of these people who love to give, these big time givers that love to give to organizations and whatnot. And so they give to this organization called Bread Coins. And so what Bread Coins does is that they take these coins and they circulate them into a place. And at the end of the week, Bread Coins come back and receive those coins, and they pay that vendor for whatever the coins was worth. So that's what Bread Coins does. It allows people to get a meal with dignity and respect. And also the other part of that is that we knew that some people wasn't going to go to the restaurant. And so what we did is we take those coins and we go down to like IHOP and whatnot, some of our partners, and we buy a big old meal full of those coins, and we bring them back to the church so that people can eat those kinds of meals. And so there's just so many different things that we use as relates to bread coins. It's a ministry, like I said, that you definitely want to serve the community with dignity and respect. I think they got it up. It's through an organization, and your pastor is a part of that, and we're on the verge of bringing bread coins here, and so he'll tell you a little bit more about how that works.
Hitting working families the hardest. Many families are facing potential hunger. Food insecurity has skyrocketed.
Without access to healthy meals, families are at risk of facing some major health concerns.
And even those with steady jobs find it difficult to put food on the table.
That is why we are on the ground in DC, distributing fresh produce, household items, and school supplies. Every person we can serve is a win.
Over this next week, I won't have to worry about groceries and different supplies for my house because of the event.
Food insecurity isn't just about hunger. It affects education, health, and even our mental health.
It was very important for me to give back to my community because when I was homeless, they gave back to me.
Our 3 food distribution events have helped feed over 10,000 people, but we're not stopping there. We're committed to expanding our reach, and here's where you come in.
I serve because it is much better to give than it is to receive.
I serve because God placed it in my heart.
And I serve because policies matter and people matter even more.
Woo! Y'all see that? Yeah, those are all the partners right there. Y'all see just partnership, the amount of lives that can be impacted. And so both of them all of them rock stars because of the amount of lives. So, again, in the words of Deion Sanders, get ready. Get ready. Let's stand together as we prepare to go down from this place and enjoy the rest of our afternoons. But thank each of you for coming and being able to participate in this leadership symposium. That means a lot to me because that means that you're serious about your leadership role and you want to see the church and ministry happen and lives to be transformed. And so I'm going to let Pastors Armon and LaTaska do our benediction for us.
Again, we are grateful for your time and allowing us to come with you all in Dallas, Texas, or us from DC. We're grateful to you, my friend and my brother, and now you are our extended family. We're grateful.
Amen. Now, Lord, as we leave this place, but never from your presence, we ask that you be with us until we see each other again. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. God bless you. Go in peace.